Peter Sellers is Horundi Vibakshi. Why would anyone invite him to the party?
Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Disha Karnad. Think about it. On my channel, I usually do social commentary, that is, talk about the stuff that is currently happening in society, and I take a look into the human psyche a little bit deeply through just discussing about it or even reviewing media that is popular with us, being in English, Hindi, anime, anything. So if that kind of stuff interests you, then go ahead and click that subscribe button. It's a red one right there. It's not that difficult, but it would help me so much. Yeah, without any more delay, let's get on to today's topic. So I recently watched this hit Netflix series called Never Have I Ever. I had watched the first season a couple of months ago, and when the second season came out, I was interested enough to wanted to give it a watch too. And the story is about Devi, who is an Indian girl who grew up in the US, and what happens in her life as an American teenager. Okay, and when I watched it, it got me thinking about how Indians are represented in Hollywood. I think we can all agree that the depiction of Devi was more or less not disrespectful to Indian culture. In fact, it invites a healthy curiosity from viewers who might not be used to it. But depiction of Indians in Hollywood has not always been this favorable. So, one of the earliest memories I have of watching Indians in a Hollywood movie is that of a movie that I will just play the clip of here. I can't recall its name right now. But in that movie, a white actor has brown face and he is playing the role of an Indian who is new to American society and is just struggling to learn and adapt to it. Okay, so at least we have progressed from, I don't know, casting white people in the role of Indians to actual Indians, right? So that's good. But even if you look at the more recent depictions of Indians, like probably Raj from the Big Bang Theory, it has not been that great. Most of the depictions fall into stereotyping Indians, like be it Apu, the guy who owned the supermarket in The Simpsons, and his ridiculous, very caricaturized accent, or someone like Dopinder, for instance, from Deadpool. Indians are cast in one of three roles. The first is that of a nerd who is basically a social reject. The second is that of some kind of low to mid level business owner or employee, like taxi drivers, a person who owns a supermarket, or those types of jobs. And the third is a slight combination of the first nerdy part and a weird pervert type of thing. Okay, so neither of these depictions do justice to a country that has a billion people living in it, right? And also, America has a huge population of South Asians living in their own country, around 4 million, if I'm right. So I think it was time that they moved on from representing us in such a poor light to actually representing Indians with a little bit of dignity. So I wouldn't say that it has all been bad. For example, Priyanka Chopra's character in the show Quantico was played very well and was written pretty well. Although I have not finished watching that series, but they didn't treat her Indianness disrespectfully. But a lot more can be done for Indian representation in Hollywood. To understand how the portrayal of Devi's family in Never Have I Ever is such a welcome change from what we are used to seeing, we need to delve a little bit deeper into one of the most well known Indian characters on TV, and that is Raj from The Big Bang Theory. So we know that this is a show about four nerds and how socially awkward they are, and how they, despite their genius, they can't figure out how to live life like a normal human being within society. Okay, so from the get-go we know that Raj is going to be one of the nerds and therefore unpopular, and have all the traits associated with that trope. But apart from all this, or in addition to all this, he also happens to be an Indian. Now, his Indian heritage is never used as a medium to explore what the country might be or to gain a better understanding of why the character makes certain decisions.
All right, hotshot, let's hear your Indian.
I can't sit on that elephant. My ass is on fire from eating all this curry.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty good.
Instead, his Indianness is always played for laughs. So, whether it be jokes about how Indians worship cows or how they have ridiculous arranged marriages, and they take it to a very absurd extent, and they don't give him any respect that should come with the territory of someone being from a foreign culture that you might not know much about.
About this, why don't Hindus eat beef?
We believe cows are gods. Not technically. In Hinduism, cattle are thought to be like God.
Do not tell me about my own culture, Sheldon. In the mood I'm in, I'll take you out. I swear to cow.
The only other Indian representation we see is of Raj's parents, who are again very stereotyped as being really strict Asian parents, and then his sister Priya, who is, of course, because she is female, she is exoticized, and everyone keeps talking about, wow, like she's so beautiful, and again the word exotic gets thrown around so many times. So that's what it's not a very favorable look for Indians to have, right? If you look at some of the better representations for Indians in Western shows, the first that comes to mind is the Mindy Project, which aired in, I think, 2012. Aziz Ansari's Master of None, Hassan Minhaj's The Patriot Act, and probably Bend It Like Beckham, which is a really great movie if you haven't watched it. And one thing that all these shows have in common is that they have been written by Indians themselves. So far, if we wanted some dignified or even not caricaturized depictions of Indians in Western shows, we have had to write these shows ourselves. We couldn't depend on the majority white writing and movie industry to give us the representation that we need. Sadly, it hasn't changed much even today, because the show Never Have I Ever is produced by Mindy Kaling, who happens to be Indian herself. But at least we have some examples of a show that is doing really well with the masses and not just the Indian community, to show people that Indians are not some weird, ununderstandable anomaly of, strange culture and tradition that for some reason plays Holi all year round. So now let me delve a little deeper into what makes this show so good. Firstly, the writing is amazing. All the characters have their own individual arcs, and all the actors that have been cast do a job of playing them beautifully. So, no comments on that. The story itself is very engaging, and although it is a story about an Indian girl who is growing up in America, you see that her challenges are more or less the same as any American teenager would face. And her Indianness, her Indian family values and culture are used to inform her choices and the constraints that she might have in making some decisions that would be easier for someone who is not of Indian heritage. And I think the writers have done a really good job of weaving in Devi's Indianness into the daily activities of her life without making it seem too contrived. One scene that comes to my mind is in the first season when Devi had attended some type of Ganesh Puja, and she met one of her cousins who had just gone to college.
Why are you at this lame fest?
I actually really wanted to come.
To Ganesh Puja at a public high school in the valley? Are you insane?
And the conversation they had was very interesting to me and kind of opened my eyes about the Indian experience abroad. So Devi's cousin tells her of this friend of his, I think he is Native American, and how he participates in the culture of his ethnic group with so much pride. And that made me think about why Indians don't do that. And even Devi herself and her cousin, both of them agreed with the fact that Indians usually shy away from their Indianness. They, especially the younger generation, they don't want to seem too Indian. They want to seem modern, and basically they are kind of ashamed of their Indianness. And it made me think why that is so. Like, why is there such a huge difference between the cultural pride that other ethnic groups feel and Indians? And I think one of the major reasons for it is this.
How? Stand on your desk.
Brian?
Padma, just do it.
Oh boy.
Are you Padma?
No, I am Ranita. There is a python in my cube.
Brian?
Padma!
Imagine you're an Indian kid that is growing up in America, and the only representation of people that have your cultural background is that of caricatures. So either their Indianness is used to ridicule them with even movies like the James Bond movies of long ago, showing Indians as snake charmers or people that are weirdly obsessed with monkeys and Maharajas that have absurd amounts of wealth, or it is used as a medium of spiritual discovery and awakening for the white person, like in movies such as Eat, Pray, Love. So it's either ridicule or exaltation to an unrelatable degree to a normal Indian kid, right? So shows like Never Have I Ever will really help the current generation of Indians that is growing up there, and even us who are watching it from here, okay, from back home, to have characters that are Indian but also individuals. I mean, look at the other cultures such as the Chinese or Japanese and other East Asian cultures. They have such a huge variety in their depiction on in Hollywood movies, like whether it be martial arts, samurai culture, maybe, I don't know, there is so much cool stuff that is shown about them. Whereas in India, the award-winning movies are like Slumdog Millionaire. And yes, India is a poor country. We are developing and we are just now overcoming some of the huge baggage that British colonialism has left us with, right? But that's not all we are. India is making strides in every sphere, okay? And even our cultural heritage and our history is so rich and so vibrant. And people just reduce it to people playing Holi and Diwali, I guess, right? So I don't know, like people need to do better, and Never Have I Ever is one of the shows that has done that to a much better degree than what I was expecting even. This is not to say that the show just exalts Indian culture and doesn't point out some of the flaws that it has, and that's what made me respect the show a little bit more and made it relatable to us Indians who are watching it. So for example, Devi's cousin Kamala, she comes to the US to study, and she has to constantly fight against the force of her family to get into an arranged marriage.
Your cousin, sweetie, she doesn't need any extra pressure. Today's lunch will determine whether or not she has a happy life.
Great. Thank you for relieving the pressure, Auntie.
And she is an individual. She was dating on her own and she wanted to make something of her life. And she happens to be very brilliant, right? But nobody cares about that, especially the family of the groom that come to see her. Everyone was only interested in whether she can cook, clean, and basically baby her husband. And these are things that women in India have had to deal with. And I was disheartened to know that women who are living abroad also have to deal with to some extent. There are some other things that might be dealt with exclusively by an Indian person living in the West, such as Devi praying or having to face like cultural blindness of Americans. Like everyone just assumes that you're from the Middle East, even though you're Indian, and all this type of ignorance that comes with living in a foreign country. So those types of things might be more relatable to a person who is growing up in the US and happens to be Indian. So overall, I feel like the show is really good. It's a fun watch, and I like the fact that it has widespread popularity, not just with Indians, but with the world in general. And I feel happy that there is finally representation of Indians as people and not caricatures. So if I had to point out some things though that I did take issue with on the show, it's just two things, okay? And like I've said before, I do like to nitpick, and this is nitpicking. The first is the depiction of nerds. So If you have noticed, when Kamala joins the lab that she works at and she has to work with a group of nerds, they are continuously made fun of for not knowing how to speak to women and being really bad at sports and physical activities. Like she mentions that there is a cabinet full of inhalers, and even the robotics team that one of Devi's friends is the captain of, everyone on that team is shown to be really awkward and not shown in a very favorable light. So I guess it is in line with the general opinion about nerd culture that is prevalent in America, so I can't really comment on it. But really, like, I think nerd culture has become much more mainstream. Like that guy in the lab, like Blackpink, and everybody listens to K-pop. Everyone watches anime. Everybody is into video games and Star Wars and all that. Okay, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So I don't think nerd culture is as ridiculed as it was in the past, and Hollywood studios are yet to catch up with this. And also, I don't like the fact that people constantly put down the masculinity of men who are nerds, right? Because even Kamala, she kind of made fun of that guy's drink. Like, let people drink what they want. If you want a fruity drink, then drink it. It's like, you don't have to drink just black coffee and whiskey to be considered a man, right? Like, so just chill. We can just forget about these ridiculous stereotypes. The second thing that constantly bothered me throughout the show is the accent. Okay, so you, viewer, tell me which Indian person you know speaks like that. Because I don't know any Indian who speaks with an accent like they do. Like whether it be Raj's accent or the accent that is put on by Kamala and her boyfriend and even Devi's grandmother when she comes to India, no one speaks with that accent. That accent only exists in movies, okay? So when the show is made by Indian creators and the actors are all Indian, you would expect that they would pay attention to making the accent more realistic, but they didn't do that. I did a little bit of reading and I found out that all the actors that play these characters, like everyone from Kamala, her boyfriend, and even Devi's dad, oh my god, that dude's accent really annoyed me. I know it is supposed to be very sad that he died and everything, but in every flashback, I just couldn't take it seriously because he was making a really ridiculous Indian accent, right? Like, no one speaks like that. I can't take you seriously when you're speaking like that. Okay, so I wish people who are Indian at least don't make fun of themselves and create and play into this fictional Indian accent that white people have created. Okay, so that's it. I mean, come on, they must have some Indian relatives living here, right, back home. Or just watch the billions of YouTubers that are on India. Like, hello, this, what I'm speaking is the Indian accent, okay? And no one speaks like this and just keeps nodding their head. I can't even imitate that accent, but yeah. So I will keep rambling about this if I let myself go. So I'm going to stop here. To summarize it all, I want to say Never Have I Ever is a really good show. It has healthy representation of Indians, and even otherwise, it is a show that has very well written characters. And even though people like Devi might not be likable all the time, I think her actions are very true to herself, and that's very difficult to do in a show. And also, I want to talk about Paxton. This is the first time I have seen a show that devoted so much of a character arc to the jock character. Okay, so I always wonder what happens to all these high school jocks in all these teen shows. Like, do they go on to like play varsity sports, and then what happens after that? Because only a very small percentage of these people must make it to the national teams, right? So do they just go on to do other jobs? I don't know what happens. But yeah, Paxton was a good departure from the stereotypical asshole jock character, and the character development that he had was really realistic, and I'm sure that it gave hope to many people who are in his shoes right now. So I think that was a really refreshing change. So yeah, and kudos to the actress who played Devi, because she did a phenomenal job. She is extremely talented, and I hope that she has a very successful career ahead of her. So yeah, that's all I have to say about Never Have I Ever and the representation of Indians in Western media. So if you like the show, or if you have any other examples of ridiculous caricaturizing of Indian culture, then please feel free to share it in the comments. And please subscribe to my channel. It's just one click for you, but it means so much to me. So see you guys next time. If you have any video ideas, please comment below. And thank you for watching. Bye.